Big Wolf is one of those shows. So it was essentially my first job as an actor. And it has in some ways set up my entire life. I met my wife on that show, and we've
Oh,
been
you
together for
did.
20 years.
So you owe
Yep.
it all to Big Wolf on
Uh,
campus. Oh my
no,
gosh.
literally, so I'm one of my dearest friends is Peter Knight, who's the creator of Big Wolf.
Hmm.
I love him dearly, and I tell him often that I owe him my life. Like everything I
Wow.
am now is honestly is because of that show. The lessons that I learned from that show, and the people that I met, it's invaluable. It's everything. But
Yes. No, it's amazing. And oh, your wife, was she an actress on there? What was she doing there?
believe it, she was an extra.
Oh, she was an
She
extra.
she
Oh
was an
my God. And
extra,
how did it work
and
out? Yeah.
so we had we had like our series regulars of extras, right? Because we were in high school, and it was halfway through season one, and we're in the factory, and all of a sudden, Danny and I were in between takes, and we're standing, and Danny and I were like this. I mean, we were best friends, and I see this girl, and my heart stops, and I am like, who is this? Who is this person? I mean, we've been filming for 6 months. I've never, oh my gosh. And it was the strangest thing. I can see it now, 20 years later, almost like it's a painting. It's like, I see she was wearing she had a ponytail, a skirt on, and a black shirt. I've never felt anything like that. It was like I knew her already, or I needed to know her, or it was like this spiritual. It was the most insane feeling ever.
And you've never had that before with
And
anyone? Like, this is like the.
anyone ever?
No one
Nope.
ever.
Never,
Same.
never,
Okay,
never.
what made her different for a spiritual person like this? Sometimes people are lessons in life if they're spiritual.
Yeah,
What made
absolutely.
her
Yep.
stay, or what made her feel spiritual to you? Like, go more into detail.
It's a feeling, right? So like when I say spiritual, I'm Christian. I'm
Oh,
Mormon,
oh,
and
nice.
so when you have a confirmation of the spirit, it's this warm feeling in your body, this feeling of love and peace, and this like happiness that is like not earthly, and it's only happened a few times in my life, but it is so undeniable and so perfect and so beautiful. And when I saw her, I embodied all of that, and this was before I was really religious or anything. Like it was the most uh, undeniable thing to me, and I was so drawn, almost like I knew her in another life or something. Like it was really, and we are, she is my everything. 20 years later, we're madly in love.
Oh,
We're the best of friends. Our relationship is better now than it even was when we first started.
really?
And I think we're two kindred souls that were on a mission to find each other in this life.
And you
And
did.
it's crazy. And it
Wow.
did. And I'm this kid from Colorado who decides he wants to be an actor and moves to LA and books a show and goes to Montreal and meets the love of his life. It was
I
perfect. It
got
was
chills.
amazing.
I love
Oh,
that. And then you gave Big Wolf on campus a whole new meaning now. Now you met your wife on there. Now it's a whole different level. It's not just even Big Wolf. It's like your wife. Your wife.
yeah, and it's funny. You go and watch the episodes, and you can see her walking in the background all over the place. And she even got a few speaking parts. That she had a small little scene with Corey Feldman, and then another scene with Danny Ame and I.
Sorry, your wife. What was her reaction? Because you're feeling this whole thing. What did she feel? And did she feel the same way immediately?
She did.
No
She
way. Oh,
did.
come on.
Yeah,
I love
she
it.
really did. And the funny thing is she had a boyfriend of 4 years at that time.
Oh, like she was dating him
And
then. She was dating him then when you met her?
yep, she thought she was gonna marry him.
Oh my God.
And she's like, when I saw you, it was just like my world just shattered. And she's like, what is happening? What am I doing? And here's the funny thing. This is interesting. And again, I was young. I was like barely 19. So
Mm.
I've done a lot of maturing since then. But so there was a party that night. This was on a Friday and I had Rachel Lefebvre, who played my love interest on season 1. I had Rachel Lefebvre go up to the extras holding and ask my Rachel, my wife's name is Rachel,
Oh, okay.
if she wanted to go to the party tonight instead of doing it myself.
Wait, but
What
you
is that?
told her?
That's so
How did
weird.
that happen? Like, she knew that you liked
So I
her? Like,
said, so yeah, so we had like kind of talked and flirted a little bit, right? And so I don't know, it was so long. I don't know why I didn't ask her. I don't know why. But Rachel's like, hey, Rachel Lefebvre was like, hey, do you want me to go ask her if she wants to go to Pete's party tonight? I'm like, yeah, go ask her. See what she said.
yeah, go.
I don't know. Maybe I was chicken. I don't really remember. But Rachel goes in, and I'm waiting outside, and she comes out with this big smile. And she goes, and so
That's
she
great.
gave her, yeah,
Wow.
she gave her the address. Yep.
Wow. So she was like your go-between. You could thank her too. That's
Yep.
crazy.
Yep. No, it
Wow.
was amazing.
Now tell me, because I always ask people like that, if you knew, like, per se, she's your soulmate, which you knew, it seems like back then, okay? Would you?
Yeah.
What if she left your life? Like, what if you never asked her out, or you never saw her, never did anything about it? What would have happened if she got away?
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Life is weird like that. It's like it's made up of a series of choices, and it's literally like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
And uh, I believe we were destined to be together, so I've never really even thought about it. But I have thought, it's like I've had conversations with my kids. I'm like, what's interesting is, had I not have booked Big Wolf,
Mm-hmm.
you guys would cease to exist with my DNA, and I would have never met your mom. And I feel like I think there's multiple people out there. I'm sure I would have found somebody else. Would I have been as madly in love and felt the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
connection I do with my wife? Probably not. But I'm sure she would have found somebody. I would have found somebody. But it's like it's a sad, terrible thought to think of going through life not being with my wife, whom again is like we're like an extension of each other. It's weird. She's everything to me.
Wow. And I want to know, did you guys have a lot in common, or were you guys different personalities?
So we had a lot, and it's weird. We're very different,
Mm-hmm.
but we have a lot of commonality, and the things that matter most in life to us, we
Mm-hmm.
were spot on the same plane. So I'll give you an example. Well, this doesn't matter, but so I grew up in Colorado, which
Mm-hmm.
most people in Colorado are snow skiers or snowboarders. I hate the cold. I've snowboarded. I know how to snowboard, but I'm a warm weather person. So
Mm-hmm.
we grew up water skiing, right? I learned how to water ski before I learned how to ride a
Oh,
bicycle.
wow.
And so I started to compete. I slalomed, I wakeboarded, I barefoot, and it's not a very popular sport. And so one of the first conversations I had with my wife, I was telling her that I water ski, and she's like, "What?" She's like, "I water ski."
No.
And I'm like, "Come on, really?" I'm sure, yeah, right. Like you water ski, like you could just two ski. She's like, no, like I can barefoot. I go, wait, what? You barefoot? Like, you know what barefooting is? It's like skiing on skis. I mean, skiing on water without skis. It's
Right.
just your feet. It's extremely difficult, and not a lot of people do it. My wife is a better barefooter than I am. I mean, she's
No way.
hardcore. And so immediately we're like, wait, what? Like, what are the
That's
chances that
crazy.
we're so connected, and our passion is water skiing. That is, it was the most, my mind was blown. I called my dad after that conversation. I go, Dad, guess what? I met this really hot girl, and she freaking barefoots. He's like, hang on to her, son.
This makes it seem like
Yeah.
it's even more faded. I'm telling you, this now, like, more pieces are putting, to the puzzle. So that's
Yep.
crazy. That is
No,
wow.
yeah, there's so many things like that, but innately we sort of attack life from different angles. My wife is full of life, full of energy, super ambitious, almost to a fault, and and her family is more like that, and my family is super laid back, super chill. And so through the course of our lives together, I've brought her down a little bit, she's brought me up.
Oh.
So there's this like nice balance, but we both had the same outlook on like family, which is huge for us, and spirituality, and just the things that I think make a decent human being and really, really matter, that ground people.
Mm-hmm.
We were perfectly lined. We just build each other up, and we have literally just gone through life, and we've grown, and no relationship is perfect, but you like strive to work through certain things, and it's just been the most incredible experience of my life.
That's
And
amazing.
being able to share your life with somebody like that is, I feel very fortunate, and very lucky. And
You know,
people like servers, or people are like, oh my gosh, you two are so cute, or you look so in love. I'm like, yeah, we're like, and we get that 20 years later, we still get that. Like, we'll get random people be like, you guys look like you're so in love. Are you dating? How long have you been dating? Like, we've been together for 20 years. They're like, what?
No way.
Yeah.
One last thing I want to ask you, because I gotta
No,
know.
please.
Your wife, when you went to the party, like Big Wolf, how did you guys actually get together? I'm sorry, I feel like we skipped that part. Like, what happened? Like,
we did.
Okay, just tell us, because like I gotta know this. Like, we gotta know your full love story.
This is funny. Yeah. This is actually a really funny part of the story. So, so listen, I was a 19-year-old guy, right? I was a lead of a show. Undeniable feelings for this girl.
Yeah.
Go to this party. I'm there for a couple hours. She doesn't show up. And I'm like, crap, man. Like, I didn't get her number. I don't know who she is other than this girl from, and so I leave. I left. And no sooner did I leave. And this was before the days of cell phones, mind you. This was in 1998.
Oh, okay.
She shows up like 10 minutes later. 10 minutes later. And she's like, hey, where's Brandon? And Peter's like, you literally just missed him. He was waiting for you, and he just left. And I think Danny and I went downtown partying or something like that after the party. And she's like, oh man. So I guess she stayed there for a couple hours and left. And then the season was over. So I was like, I'll never see this girl again. And we had about 3 months in between each season. So I went back to LA. New season starts, season 2, first day of shooting.
Okay.
It was just me. We're shooting in this park, and I'm dressed in the wolf costume. And I had just come out of the makeup trailer, and I was walking to my trailer, and I walk by my wife, and I see her, and I'm like, it's like her, but we weren't close enough for me to go up to her. We had one conversation on set that one day.
Right.
Rachel asked her to this party.
Right.
And so I go in my trailer, I close my door, and I look out the window. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's her.
That's her.
That's her.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
She was with her boyfriend. They were the kissing couple on set. And her side of the story, she saw me pass, and she said to her boyfriend, she's like, oh my gosh, that's the lead of the show. So I'm like, okay, I got to go talk to her. Mustered up the courage. I'm dressed as that ridiculous werewolf. And I go out, and I strike up a conversation. I'm like, hey, do you remember the... She's like, yeah, how have you been? And so the three of us are talking, but really my wife and I, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, you know, but there is chemistry like I have never had in my entire life. I have never felt so comfortable with somebody from the opposite sex. Like, she just made me feel so comfortable in my own skin, and there was not a shortage of things to say. We talked and we talked and we talked. So I invite him in my trailer. We all hang out all day, and I'm like infatuated with this human, and nobody's ever made me feel this way. And so at the end of the day, you know, I was like, oh, hey, you know, we the boyfriend, but really we should hang out. Like, she's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, let me give you my phone number. So she takes a piece of paper and writes a phone number down, and on the top it says Mike, her boyfriend. Oh. And I was like, oh, man. Like, she's madly in love. I literally crinkled it up and I threw it in the trash. I was like, there's no chance. There's no way.
Yeah, no, especially if it's his number.
I'm not going to she's got a boyfriend of almost 5 years. I asked for her number. That was sort of my test. And she gave me her boyfriend's number. It's a no-go. And she was, at the time, her father was in the final stages of life. So she was going through a lot. And I was like, who knows if I'll ever see her again. And I see her 3 weeks later. she comes to set again.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, I'm excited to see her. And that day right there, every moment on set I could, every second in between every take, at lunch, I was by her side, and we were talking, and we were laughing, and we were talking about her dad and life, and it just slowly started to blossom, and you know, I got her phone number. And I think it was like a week. She's so good with dates, but I think it was like a week later, actually Merton, Danny Standen, was throwing a party, and I asked her if she wanted to come to this party, and she did.
Oh, but minus boyfriend. What happened to the, like?
Minus boyfriend.
Oh, where'd he go? You got to tell her.
So at this point, there is clear chemistry. She knows I like her. I know she likes me, but nothing's really been said.
Right.
And it was a week, maybe 2 weeks later, and we're at this party, and I am just falling for this girl, and we're in the kitchen, and I'm looking at her, and there's all these people around, and I'm like, I look at her, and I'm like, and I'm not a smooth talker. I am flying by the seat of my pants here, and I'm like, so I kind of want to do something. And she's like, what's that? And I'm like, I kind of want to kiss you. And she's like, so do it.
No, oh my gosh.
And so I kiss her, and that next night we go on our first date, and we went to this restaurant in Old Port, Montreal, and we talked for 3 hours before we even ordered food. And we were sitting across the table from each other, and just talked about such deep conversation, just talked about everything, to where the waiter finally came up and was like, you guys, you got to order. Like, you're killing me, right? Like, oh gosh, yeah, so sorry. And that night, I was actually, the next day I told her, I go, listen, I hate to, it was kind of exciting being the third wheel, until it wasn't. And all of a sudden I had true feelings, and I didn't like it. And so I had told her, I go, listen, I hate to put you in this situation, but it's either me or him. Like, you gotta make a choice. And she's like, are you sure? Because everyone on set is like, don't do it. He's an actor. He's going to play you. Don't, you have this like serious boyfriend. Don't leave your boyfriend for Brandon. And so she's like, I mean, I feel the same way, but are you sure? Are you sure? And I'm like, I've never been more sure about anything in my life. And so she drove from my house to her boyfriend's house, and broke up with him. And we've been together ever since.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. And you guys got engaged at what point? How much after that?
We got engaged, let's see here, about 2.5, 3 years after dating.
How come so long in between?
We were so young, and I was working on Big Wolf. I was doing a show, and so I was working, and it was just perfect. And it got to a point, though, where it was so perfect, and we were progressing to where, even though it's funny, people are always like, wow, you got married so young, and I go, listen, I wasn't looking for it. It literally fell on both of our laps. And I remember the time thinking, there was that crossroads where we had progressed far enough to where it was about to get serious, and it was either dive full bore, head first into that, or cool it off like a lot of people do. I'm like, yeah, I'm not ready to get serious, you know. And I remember that, like, that fork in the road.
Oh, you do.
And I had this thought of, like, I'm young. Am I really ready to settle down? Maybe not, but I'm madly in love, and I may never find this again, ever. And so I took the road less traveled, and that's when I was like, all right. And so we really started to get serious, and it wasn't long after that I proposed to her, and the show ended. So once the show ended, we moved. She moved. I had proposed in actually in upstate New York. We have her family has a lake on a house on a lake, and I proposed up there, and the show ended, and we moved to LA, and 6 months later we got married.
Wow, that's amazing. So you got the amazing experience of the show and your wife out of it. That is
Yep.
beautiful.
Yep.
Beautiful.
No, it's really everything. So I look at that time of my life from 98 to I think 2002 in Montreal. Montreal is everything to me. It's one of my favorite places in the world, and every time I go, we usually go once a year during the summer, and I get this nostalgic, warm, incredible feeling every time I'm in that city. I just love it. I love it. I love it.